And unfortunately, it's with a heavy heart that we start our broadcast. This broke at 2:47 as we were sitting here doing our mix with the G-Bag Nation. Kavanaugh looked at his computer and spun it around and showed Dawson, and he was showing them the Ian Rappaport tweet, and that is that essentially Randy Gregory has been suspended by the NFL indefinitely. Everything that we're hearing is that, okay, this ties back into, at least what we're hearing, ties back into some of the stuff that was going on at the end of the season when we started hearing about Randy Gregory. Mm-hmm. Is he suspended again? Was there a problem? Are they just looking the other way now because they're not worried about weed? I mean, I remember all that going on.
Talk about guys on other teams that had failed tests, and the Cowboys like, well, what about this guy and this guy? And the league doesn't even have their drug ideals uniform because they realize how stupid it is that weed is illegal, but it's a part of their collective bargaining agreement. So some guys fail test and get to skate. It's a big, giant cluster F, if you ask me.
So the exact tweet was, Cowboys pass rusher Randy Gregory has been suspended indefinitely for violating the policy and program for substances of abuse and the terms of his conditional reinstatement. Big blow for Dallas. That's from Ian Rappaport.
Rappaport is a douche.
Who broke that thing. And, man, that is just a tragedy for the Cowboys. And, if they had been trying to work out a resolution over all this time since, did you say December? Was that with December when we were talking about that?
Yeah, like Thanksgiving time-ish, somewhere
late
around
November
there.
Even?
Yeah.
Then I don't know what took so long to get to this point. I don't know why they talked and it fell apart and they couldn't work anything out.
Maybe this was all tied to whether or not Robert Kraft was going to be in good shape with his situation.
Yeah.
I'm joking. But it's just like, I don't understand. Have a concrete policy, and if you realize your concrete policy is flawed, then you change it and you don't use it as a negotiation tactic.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. It showed, I think all along with Randy Gregory, it showed how, we've seen what a precarious situation he finds himself in and how substance abuse or addiction and all those things are so incredibly real. This is not a guy who's just dumb. He's very smart, very bright guy. This is not a guy who cares more about weed than he does about his future or taking care of his family. I can't make an excuse for him. I don't know how on earth he could allow this to happen, whether it was missing a test, whether it was being tested positive. He's blown it. I think that, a guy who I think over the back half of the season, he was just as successful as D-Law or,
the numbers
as productive.
were comparable,
it was very similar.
Yeah.
And so to have two of those guys, to have bookends, that's a huge foundation for your defense moving forward. And he was just kind of coming into his own.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think it's very possible that Randy Gregory never plays the NFL ever again.
I think that makes sense, but I also think just the nature of where this is going. I think he'll be back. I think they'll figure out how to make this palatable. The national discourse on marijuana has changed so dramatically. And the problem here is, for the NFL, I should say, is that, look at the last 18 months, what's been isn't ostensibly A Star is Born a movie that everyone related to because it's about dealing with your demons and the way people view mental illnesses, whether it's substance-related or addiction-related or manic depression or all these things.
It's one of the factors.
And Jacob Schick came on our show at the Super Bowl and was talking about those things. People view mental issues differently than they used to, and I think people deal with the self-medication of those issues differently than they used to, and they view marijuana differently than they used to. So I think the idea that, assuming because of Randy's history, that this is a failed marijuana test, it may not be, man. He may have tested cocaine. I don't know. But if it is along his history and reported history that he's tested positive for marijuana, then I think he will be back because I just think that's the nature of where this thing is going. The problem for the Cowboys is the timeliness of it as they head into the draft and the offseason and trying to figure out how to pay DeMarcus Lawrence and what they have there. It's just the timing for the Cowboys is horrific.
David Hellman from DallasCowboys.com tweeted this. Stephen Jones was asked about Gregory earlier. He said Gregory, quote, certainly has his challenges, continues to have them. I don't think those things go away. He will keep working and cheering for him, and I think he'll only get better.
Yes. So this is Stephen at the Combine today. It's cut 18. The question was about David Irving. more than it was about than it was about Randy. But he mentioned Randy in the answer. I think the question was, how hard was it to manage the David Irving situation?
It was difficult, but when you have guys like that who struggle with things off the field, then those are priorities, and football comes second. And we certainly know that comes first for them, and same with David. And obviously they hadn't, neither one of them. I think it's totally. I don't know if you ever overcome it when you have some of the issues that they have, but they continue to fight.
It's interesting.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, interesting that you're bringing it back up again there. This is just really horrific Cowboy news, though.
They knew it was coming, though.
They knew it was coming, but it doesn't.
It didn't affect how they were building their roster on an on-field standpoint.
It doesn't.
We picked a bad day to have a bad day.
It doesn't solve the issue. The issue now is that, as we've been talking about areas where they really need to improve, we didn't list defensive end as super pressing. We realized it was in the mix. Because you're sitting there going, well, if you draft a defensive tackle, you pop Tyrone Crawford outside and suddenly have Armstrong and Crawford and Taco and Randy and Tank. Well, now it's like, now we have to put Tyrone on the outside, and now we're extra weak on the inside. Defensive line is a huge priority for this team.
Yeah, totally agree. And it changes so many different things, too. It changes, Tyrone Crawford. Tyrone Crawford may have been a cap casualty.
He was in the mix.
And they may have made that decision. I'm not saying I would. I absolutely, but there's no way they can do that now. I mean, they're weak at both those positions, their interior and their edge rushers now. Taco Charlton thing really stings, man. It really stings at a time like now when you could have TJ Watt and you passed on him. And I look at all these guys, trying to find a war daddy. I don't know how D-Law was there when he was there, a second rounder, right? They traded up to get him in the second round. I don't know why. I mean, it's – and look, TJ Watt went late in the first round, right? When he's still in the first round, at the end of the first round. So it's like, most of the time, if you're going to get a certified, bona fide war daddy, edge rusher, difference maker, it's going to be in the top 10 picks, maybe top 15. And so the Cowboys have taken on these incredible risks to try to find one in the second round, somebody with warts, somebody with flaws. It's why they took Randy Gregory, because he had the ability to be a war daddy, but he had warts. He had his own weed issues. And Greg Hardy, same thing. Hey, we'll roll the dice on Greg Hardy because it's so hard to find a bona fide war daddy to rush off the edge. I don't know where they find that moving forward. They don't have a first round pick, and I think it's a good thing that they don't, because Amari Cooper's more than worth it.
Right.
But that said, they don't have a first-round pick, and you're not going to find a bunch of badass edge rushers in free agency.
No, you're not.
The play is to fix this inside, and if you look at the draft where they're picking at 58, there are some guys with warts who could slide a little bit to them and be okay. I'm not saying. I am saying immediate starter quality. Yeah, probably. A couple names like Dexter Lawrence of Clemson. Remember, he was suspended for the national championship game.
Right.
But it was not his fault. Clemson's actually admitted that was their fault. They gave him something that was banned. He's 345 pounds, and he's a one-tech, and he's got a chance to be awesome, but he's super inconsistent. The other guy is Jerry Tillery of Notre Dame, and he could fall to you at 58. There's some questions about what he's into outside of football. He's got a world traveler guy and kind of got a reputation as a dirty player guy, but he could slide, and there are decent players you could get at 58 that fixes this. Make no mistake about it. They knew going into 2019 that DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyrone Crawford are the defensive ends, and that Taco and Dorrance Armstrong are their backup defensive ends.
Yeah, you're right.
They knew that.
You're right.
Yeah.
So then the question is, can they get in a draft that has a lot of good defensive tackles, can they get one there? And then look at that's how they're addressing that. As I sit here and think about this, and I'm just really echoing what Kavanaugh just said, but I have been thinking about this ever since the whole Tyler Eifert conversation came up. I'm not even thinking about drafting a tight end now, because the truth is that they like Jarwin and he can get better. And then if they do get somebody that take a health gamble and he ends up working out, look at, you could probably draft a slot guy later, but they're back to where they have to address the defensive front at the beginning part of this draft.
It doesn't change for me because I think it's such a unique position of need, a dominant edge rusher, pass rusher. It's just so hard to find. that, I mean, if you're talking about a project, you're just as good with Dorrance Armstrong as you are with maybe anybody you could take in second. I mean, you guys like him, right? And so I think he's got upside. And so I still think your needs are so significant at tight end, at defensive tackle, at safety. You know, how many of those things can they address in free agency? That'd be great if they could knock some of those things out. But I just don't think this is a position that it's easy to find. So I don't think it changes the way they approach the draft. I still make safety, tight end, and defensive tackle my three biggest needs.
I don't think it changes anything. I agree with you. I think you just look at you know what you need, and you look at it that way. Now, you could take tight end off the board by signing Eifert for cheap. And if Eifert wants to be here, Eifert will probably play for $3 million.
That won't take it off the board for me. I like him being involved, but it wouldn't take it off the board.
But I think as much as we know about how much they like Jarwin, okay, throw that into the mix a little bit, you know. But I think if you had like Tavon Austin at what he'll be worth, under $2 million probably, or under $3 million
for the 5 games
and
he plays
at
in.
3, roll that out there. Getting to know the wide receivers in this draft, there's really no reason to sign anyone. You can go get those guys. I mean, they're going to be there for you in the top 100. It's the defensive line that's hard to address, and it's hard to go get in free agency. It's hard to go find that guy, because a lot of these guys are works in progress. I mean, Ben, you made the point, like DeMarcus Lawrence, how did he get there? He fell that far because he was a work in progress. No one knew, you know.
Right.
They were kind of like, okay, if he puts it all together, you know, then he's got a chance to be something.
Right.
I think this does assure the fact that DeMarcus gets paid soon. They'll get that handled, but I still feel good about what they'll be able to get in the draft, just because they got lucky of some of the positions they need are pretty deep in this year's draft. And whether that was designed by them or not, I don't think it was. They got pretty lucky about, you know, the positions they need and how deep they are.
And there's also, I think, a greater than zero chance that Randy Gregory ends up being available for the final 8 games of next year. I don't think they're going to make him sit out the entire year.
You think he'll only miss 8 games?
I think it'll be something more aligned to that.
How about that?
Because I think the NFL is going the other way on this.
Sure.
I think it's like, you know, I don't know how many failed tests we have here. We may have so many of them. They finally just said, hey, we have to suspend the guy.
But isn't it like, so Colorado legalizes weed. They don't free everyone from prison who's in for a weed-related case, right?
No.
Like, you broke the law.
Right.
So I could see Goodell being like, no, you broke our rules. It's legal now.
they could totally be that way. And I think they could have been that way before, right? When they reinstate him? That's why they reinstate him with real specific rules. My point being is that they're going, in general, philosophically, they're going the other way on this. And so as they start moving in that direction, to just handpick Randy Gregory to be incredibly punitive against and go, you're banned for life. I mean, hell, Josh Gordon was banned for life and still came back.
How many, see, I would like to check the scoreboard to see what the violation tally was for each guy.
Right.
Like, was Josh Gordon, because, I mean, if you want to find precedent, see how many times Gordon was, how many times he failed, what the suspensions were, how long they were. We don't know. So much of this is off the record because it's, because of HIPAA laws.
All the HIPAA
laws.
And it's because the league has no structure really of handling things. They do things kind of dirty.
We all know with HIPAA laws and things like
that. Getting points on all this stuff is weird because it's like, did the organization go make some deals with you? I mean, there are players in the league who should not be in the league right now because they've failed the number of tests,
right? And
because the team has gone and met with the commissioner. And we've seen the stories. Randy's got to fly up to Chicago because the teams have gone and met with the commissioner and they've worked out a way to make it work and they've proven, hey, well, this is a good guy and he needs it and all this stuff. Well, okay, we'll let this go. All right, make sure you don't fail this test and this test and this test. The point is they had laid out the rules for Randy and he broke the rules again.